The Sikha begins, which is the Sikha of Shabbos, Bereishis, Toshin Nun Beit.
Full respect for the rabbi. Sir, why don't you open your eyes? Yeah, gotta save the world again. Yeah. Nice. Thank you. David Ben Medisti, thank you.
So the Sikha begins with a famous
Thank me very much.
quip or bizgum, which was very well known in Lubavitch. And the Rebbe brings, in the footnotes, the Rebbe brings a malchus for the actual lashon or expression from the Tzemach Tzedek. But it's not exactly clear exactly from whom and where, but it's a well-known thing that the Rebbeim encouraged this concept very much. And there's a sikha from the previous Rebbe, when he was still in Poland, where he refers to the general idea. And that is that there's an old saying in Lubavitch, connected and quoted in the name of our Rebbeim, that the way you stand yourself on Shabbos Bereishis, an expression in Yiddish which means Azevi Mishtel Tzavek, and the expression in Yiddish Mishtel Tzavek means the way you stand yourself and present yourself. For example, in a military sense, if you are required to report to the army for duty or something, then it's the same expression. It's the same use of, in Yiddish they say it the same way. And the expression in Hebrew is lehityatzeh, to stand firm and present yourself. The way you present yourself and the way you introduce yourself to what you're doing on Shabbos Bereishis, and that means the first Shabbat after Simchas Torah. Azoi Gate, Agantior, that's the way it is, you will be the whole year. In other words, that will affect your way of serving Hashem and your whole behavior and attitude within learning Torah and keeping mitzvahs. That will have an effect on that the whole of the year. Meaning that on Shabbos Bereishis we're required to make a very special effort to stand ourselves away and approach Torah mitzvahs with everything we have. And if you do it that way, then your year will be a very blessed year. I say it, and there are different ways of saying it. It comes up in different sikhas, different of the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab. It comes up in different ways that it sort of, it comes out that that's the idea. So Shabbos Bereishis is a very important Shabbos for that reason. So he said, Kefisha ne'amodim Shabbos Bereishis, the way you stand yourself up, kach hoileches kol hashana. This is the way the whole year will in effect go. V'hainu, and that means to say, Shabbos Bereishis davke, that precisely the first Shabbos after Simchas Torah, which is Shabbos Bereishis, he zu, that is the one that is koivas, es hanhoge, the way that you will behave yourself, v'hashpa also, and its effect, anim sheches, v'kol yemei shana. That way that you will behave and the way that will affect your whole life, well, that's going to be nimshad that way the whole year. It's all kilu, according to how you behave and how you stand yourself up on Shabbos Bereishis. So the Rebbe said this is quite an amazing statement, because Shabbos Bereishis is the end of Tishrei. It's like the Shabbos Mavochim Chodesh Cheshvan, and it comes after all the Yom Tovim. So all the Yom Tovim in Tishrei are pretty high stuff, to use the expression. And each one of them has a general aspect about it. For example, Rosh Hashanah every minute, the way you are Rosh Hashanah, that's important, and that affects the whole year. Yom Kippur is, if you do a bit of tshuva on Yom Kippur and you become awakened to divinity, then you do tshuva and you're awakened to divinity the whole year. If on Sukkot you're more scheurig, chas v'sholem, you're depressed and chas v'sholem, that can affect the whole year. That way, Sukkot you have to be happy, you have to be dafke b'simcha, and that simcha is nimshach kol hashana kula. And the dancing on Simchas Torah is not only simcha, but it's also kabbalah soil, and like receiving everything that's been in Tishrei, deeper in Pnimiyas. It's from Lashon Atzeres, it's from Lashon Klito. What Klito means to like absorb everything deep inside yourself. So every yontiv during Tishrei is a klali, a very klali. So the question's going to be that the Rebbe is going to arouse here, what's so special about Shabbos Bereishis that seems to affect the whole year? I mean, all the Yom Tovim of Tishrei, they all affect the whole year. And Shabbos Bereishis is only like the final, it's a Shabbos Oz, it's not Mamish a Yom Tov, and it's the Shabbos Mevorchim of the coming year. So why should that be so key in everything? If you don't mind, I'll make a bracha, because my throat is very dry.
Amen.
Thanks, you.
Sounds good.
Good drop of coffee. We need to understand. Mahu achein hamiyuchad b'Shabbos Bereishis. What is so special about Shabbos Bereishis al Pnei Kol Chodesh Tishrei, compared and seemingly above the whole Chodesh Tishrei? He said, Ki yadua Tishrei hu Bereishis Reishis. The word Tishrei, if you turn the letters of the word Tishrei around, you get the word Bereishis, but it's lacking aleph. And the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya why it's lacking the aleph, because you have to start off the year with a lot of bittul and a lot of self-effacement and everything. Therefore, the word indicating beginning, which is Tishrei, lacks the word aleph, but that's indicatory of what we call bittul, self-effacement, and therefore it's Bereishis. And really, it's hinting at the word Bereishis with the aleph, and that's why it's written in brackets, Bereishis. U'memoyedei chodesh Tishrei nimshachos habrachos v'hashpois l'kol hashana. And from the Yom Tovim that there are in Tishrei, all the blessings and all the hashpois, all the divine influence that we gain during the year, like it's written in the Gemara, Masechta Beta, that even one's parnasa is all, as a word, decided and fixed during Rosh Hashanah. So, I mean, everything that a person's going to gain, has already been fixed on Rosh Hashanah, and it goes into the whole year. Since the hashpah on the whole year, not only just part of it, but the whole year, derives from all the Yom Tovim, how they are in Chodesh Tishrei. Madua im kain mitzayinim v'meyuchad es Shabbos Bereishis b'keshel lezeh. Why do we set aside Shabbos Bereishis and we say that what really affects the whole year, both in Gashmias and both in Ruchnias and B'mele and Gashmias, is Shabbos Bereishis? But Nakudas Abiyur, the Rebbe said, there's like in every explanation, there's a Nakuda, there's like a central basic point from which you can build around an explanation. And he said the Nakuda of the Biyur, the point, like the central point of the explanation of this question, Shabbos Bereishis mitzayenes es ha-ma'avar mi chodesh Tishrei lehemshech hashana. He says Shabbos Bereishis indicates and opens up the way for a passage between Chodesh Tishrei to the ordinary descent of the year afterwards. In other words, the whole of Chodesh Tishrei, all the Moedim, in their own way, they all separate you from worldliness. And the whole of Tishrei, a Jew, is like elevated. He has nothing to do with ordinary things. How much more so on Sukkot when he's just completely, the old days, the Chassidim used to bring every night on Sukkot, and they were busy by day and they didn't. And there was just no time for anything. In Simchas Torah, people used to just go completely out of their bolas and everything. And Rosh Hashanah, a person is just the whole 48 hours involved in service of Hashem and in Kedusha. So that means that even though Chodesh Tishrei is preparing a lot of good things for you, but it does it for in a way that you are separate and not involved in worldly existence, worldly life.
On a higher level.
He said, however, what does Shabbos Bereishis represent? Shabbos Bereishis represents what we call a mavar. And a mavar means like a passage from 2 points, one to the other. In other words, the Shabbos is Shabbos, and Shabbos is Shabbos Kodesh. So it's here, it's linked somehow to the holiness of the Chagim. And yet it leads, could we make a special prayer that we bless the coming month, which is Cheshvan. And that's well known. The Rebbe brings down on a footnote in the Sikha that Cheshvan has no Yom Tov, even though there are several very special days in Cheshvan. From the point of view of Lubavitch and things like that. Also they got Zayin Cheshvan when you start saying Torah Mata, but they're not Yom Tov. There's this very special day. So Cheshvan is like a siman of the beginning of the ordinary year. Yeah? So on Shabbos Bereishis, you're already blessing Cheshvan, which means that Shabbos Bereishis is taking into account that even though you're in Shabbos, you're looking to go out into the world. So Shabbos Bereishis is like an amazing connection where you're still in Kodesh, but you're coming in and you're aware of the fact that you're going out the other side. You're going out. And that Shabbos Bereishis, in the middle of the dancing on Simchas Torah, nobody would dare to think what's going to happen the ordinary weekdays. You follow? On Shabbos Bereishis, we're already aware that we're going out into Chodesh Cheshvan. So there was the Rebbe. That's like the Nakuda at the center of this whole question, that Shabbos Bereishis is different in that way. And he said, therefore, Vehi Mahava Mamutza HaMachaber. And he called it Mamutza means like a middle point between two extremities. And he says, Mamutza HaMachaber. Now what does that mean? That's a very special, I just have to spend a moment explaining that there are two types. In Chassidus, there are two types of mamutoim, two types of like middle, the go-betweens. One go-between separates between 2 points, but it joins them nonetheless. It joins them in the sense that it allows a certain symptom on the high part, and it forms through that symptom a kesher with the lower part. But basically they remain two separate inyanim. And then there's another type of mamutza, another type of go-between function. What it joins up the two, and it sees its whole function of bringing the two together in a unity. In other words, the high and the low reach like a common factor between them through the mamutza. And for example, it's brought down, and this is a very fascinating dogma, that a mamutza, machaber of the second type we mentioned, is a rebbe with the Chassidim. the rebbe with the Chassidim, what does he do? As it's written in Perik Beis in Tanya, that the rebbe helps us to find our real kesher in our neshomas havashoyas in Elakus Mammon. And Alidei, having a kesher with the Rebbe in the generation, you form a kesher, your neshama reaches a kesher with its own shoyah. So that's done by the Rebbe. Having a kesher with the Rebbe helps you find your way to your real kesher with the neshama. which means that the Rebbe is the third aspect. He's not your neshama and he's not the Eivishter, but he's joining the two together. He's like a medium point that joins them together. I think in the old days, when the Chachamim used to give a drosha to the simple people, in the times of the Gemara, the simple people were very simple at that time. It was hard for them to hear and understand. So they used to have a special person that was called a maturgaman. And the maturgaman was like what you might call almost what's the name of the person between two people? Oh, I forgot.
Translator.
Huh?
A translator.
No, not a translator. What do you call it? Anyway, mailets, like, something similar to a translator. Yeah, between the two. So that meant that the Chacham remained separate. And the people, they didn't get exactly what the Chacham was saying. They got it through the medium of this person in the middle, which means that he in some way, he emphasized the difference between those two parties, but at the same time he caused a kesher between them. That's a very deep matter. That's called a maturgaman. And nowadays in the old Taimanish shuls, they still have they used to be in the Taimanish shuls, when they read the Kriyas HaTorah, they used to have a person who would sit over the Targum Onkelos. They used to have a special person standing on, and the Balkari would read a posik, and then this guy, he would read it in Aramaic, how it was in Targum Onkelos.
Would they have to read it in...
I think they still have it today in
Temanit? I would think they would have to read it in Temanit.
Nowadays you have to somebody translate the Targum Onkelos.
Right.
You see, they used to know the Targum.
Really?
They used to learn it. They used to know. But we see from that, just by the way, that you have to realize the Targum Onkelos has a very big kedusha. And the Gemara says in Masechta Megillah that the Targum Onkelos was given b'Sinai. I was given b'Sinai, there was called Targum Onkelos. He didn't make it, he got it from Sinai. So it's written that it was becoming lost. And Onkelos made an unbelievable effort, and he worked tremendously hard for years and years, and he re-established the Targum. But the Targum was really there in Sinai. And that's why it's called Targum Onkelos, because he put in so much hard work on the whole thing. So they used to have in the Taimanish shuls a guy who would read it out in the Targum after the Balkari. So that's once again the same idea. People remain separate, but that helped them to get a kesher. And that's what's called a mamutza al derech haragil. But a mamutza mechaber, he brings them together where they meet in a common point. Okay, so the Rebbe says that Shabbos Bereishis is that second type of mamutza. It's a mamutza hamachaber. It joins you up with what you were during Tishrei, and it gives you the strength to go into Cheshvan. He said, "Bein chodesh Tishrei l'shar chodshei hashana." It joins you to the way you were in Tishrei, the way you will be the whole year. So he said, "Atchilik bein chodesh Tishrei l'shar chodoshim hu." What's the difference between what it's like during Tishrei to all the other months? Shachodesh Tishrei meruba b'mitzvahs u'kedusha. I mean, every moment of Tishrei is like a mitzvah on its own. Even the eating on Yom Kippur, the Rebbe brings the dogma that even the eating, when we eat on Yom Kippur, the Gemara says in Masechta Brachos, the eating on Yom Kippur is like fasting an extra day. It's like you began fasting on the 9th. How can you say that? I mean, you pack yourself in with all sorts of good things. How come? Ella, that the Torah considers the eating on Yom Kippur like as if you're fasting. I would have thought somebody would fall off his chair.
We did.
Do you realize what
we
that
did.
You want to see it again?
You didn't hear us. Fasting. You didn't hear the thud on the ground. We fell.
When you eat on Yom Kippur, it's like as if you're fasting. And just by the way, it's put down in Swarm that the eating on Yom Kippur...
Erev Yom Kippur.
I'm sorry, Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur.
Okay, that's Hasidi Shabbat.
The eating on Yom Kippur, on Erev Yom Kippur, the eating on Erev Yom Kippur gives you power the whole year that your eating should be different. Understand? when you eat on Erev Yom Kippur, that gives you the power that your eating the whole year is more holy. Why? Because you ate a day where eating is considered as if you weren't eating. And that's an amazing idea. So the Rebbe brings that also in a footnote, and the Rebbe said we see that the whole of Tishrei is full of mitzvahs, what the whole purpose is Kedusha. So he said, B'lochein hu merumam, it's elevated, umuvdal mishar chotshei hashana. It's how separate and completely withdrawn from the other months of the year. Shaheim chotshei chulin. They are months of what you might call, compared to Tishrei, how do you say, mundane things, ordinary things, compared to Tishrei. She'ikar ha'avodah behem, he b'inyanei ha'olam, in matters to do with this world, u'b'udin d'choil, and in the word udin d'choil is an expression in the Gemara, b'kesher to the Shabbos. But there's certain things that they're not malachas on Shabbos. You could really do them, but we don't do them because it's like a weekday thing. You know, it's how they say in Yiddish, a wochendige Zach. So therefore we don't do it. And that's called Udin Dechol. So the other months of the year are more connected with mundane, ordinary activity compared to Tishrei. Lochen, an hoge, b'chodesh Tishrei, b'klal, eina mashpia kol kach, ala an hoge b'meshech hashana. Therefore said the Rebbe, even though Chodesh Tishrei has got all this wondrous Kedusha and mitzvahs, it doesn't have the ability so much to affect your action and your activity and your attitude on the continuation of the whole year coming. Why? Sharei lav davke sheyuklu lehisanei b'chodesh b'chodshei chulin k'b'chodesh hamaruva b'kedusha. Because it's not for sure, and we're not promised that an ordinary person is going to be able to keep in months, but they are basically connected with mundane things, with all the Kedusha that he had during Tishrei. In other words, it's a common sort of thing that, you know, when you really elevate it, you really elevate it. But when you drop back into the world, you know, it's sort of, you tend to lose the whole enthusiasm. It tends to get, you know, lost in the chulin. So therefore the Rebbe said, Tishrei has that danger about it, that Davki, because it's so high, that you might lose it a bit when you get back into the ordinary month. So therefore he said, Davki Shabbos Bereishis, Davki this Shabbos which is coming now, Shekoilelas B'toicho, Hein es Chodesh Tishrei, Chodesh Tishrei, that it's koilel in itself, Shabbos Bereishis, it contains within itself the months of Tishrei, v'hein es avodah de chodesh cheshvan, which is basically a chodesh of chulin. And Shabbos Bereishis also has a looking forward and a blessing of the avodah that we're going to be doing during chodesh cheshvan. And cheshvan is a month of ordinary deeds that are called chulin, mundane things. Yeah, b'yoyso, yeah, mechad gisa, due to the fact that from one side, Shabbos Bereishis are siyum v'sachakol shel chodesh Tishrei. It's like the siyum and the final sum total of all the months of Tishrei. V'meidach, and from the other side, he Shabbos mavochem chodesh ma'cheshvan. It's the Shabbos mavochem that gives the blessing to chodesh ma'cheshvan. So he said, "Bekach mitpateis tchilas ha'avodah b'inyanei ha'chilul." Even though on Shabbos itself you don't actually start doing any weekday things, but with that is expressing already the beginning and the sensitivity towards moving into chulin, ordinary mundane thing. B'choicho, and therefore it has in itself the power lahamshik es ha'matzav ha'naila. Since it's this linking point between the two extremities, then the Shabbos Bereishis has within its power the ability to be manching. Yeah, the matzav ha'naila, the very elevated situation there was during Chodesh Tishrei. Yeah, l'shar chotzei hachulin shel hashana, to the remaining more mundane months of the whole of the year afterwards. V'lochein, Ha'anhoga b'Shabbos Bereishis, Hi zu shemashpia al kol hashana. So the Rebbe, that's the basic point that makes sense out of that whole Pisgah and that whole, epigram that the Chassidim used to say. That's the Nakuda. The Shabbos Bereishis is like this very, very amazing linking point that joins everything together. And therefore it gives us the power to enter. And I once saw a very interesting thing, that there was a very big Rav in Hungary called the malchus Rav. And the Rebbe's father, the Rebbe Yitzchak, he had some sort of kiss with him through letters or other, and he was a very big, how do you call it, holder. He held very much on the malchus. Therefore the Rebbe brings him down in many different places. He was a very great Rav. And he says a very amazing thing. He says the word malchus, there's an Aramic word which is cheshvan in the Gemara, which means your lips are sort of saying over something. For example, there's a Gemara there's a Zohar Kodesh where Rabbi Bereishis says that once Rabbi Shimon was giving over very high sodas, how they called secrets of the Torah, and people were sort of coming in and wanted to hear, so therefore Rabbi was malchashvan sfosov. He was just moving his lips. It was so holy he didn't want to give it out in a voice. And the Rav Rashab said about that nowadays, after the Baal Shem Tov, we have the power to even talk about such things openly. So you guys said, the Rebbeim spoke about Pnimis Atika, even Lamaylam. The Rebbe talks about Atmaseita. But in those days, Rabbi Shimon was careful. He didn't talk about certain madrigas. He didn't say it. Therefore, it's written in the Zohar, malchashvan sfosel. Yeah, they're moving.
Yeah, but he was eating on Yom Kippur when he said them?
No,
Just kidding.
anyway,
All right. I didn't get it. Okay,
anyway,
I don't get it.
Comes along the malchus, and the malchus says that when you move into cheshvan, your lips are still saying over what you had in Tishrei. In other words, in order to make cheshvan not collapse, and you just collapse into the everyday thing, you've got to keep continually giving over to your own self what you had in Tishrei. For example, I just spoke to a guy today on the phone that he came back from the river. He came now from the river, and he gave me a brief picture of what went on over there, particularly during Chol HaMoed and Simchas Torah and everything. And he says, "What do I do with this, Rabbi?" He said, "I got this unbelievable. How do I, treat it?" So I said, "What you got to do is just keep telling yourself all about it, the whole of Cheshvan and Kislev and Tevet, And there's an old saying by the Chassidim, when you go to the Rebbe, you fill up your cave." The Chassidim didn't used to take very much to the Rebbe because they knew there was nothing much to live in the Gashmias area, so they used to take a relatively, empty cave. And when you buy the Rebbe, it's not you go to Manhattan and buy all sorts of good Zachen, but by the Rebbe itself, you fill up your whole cave.
Case.
Luggage.
Yeah.
Your, how do you call it, what is in America, case?
Luggage.
Your suitcase.
The Siddim didn't have luggage.
Baggage. Look, your baggage.
When you come back home, you have to open the case, and you have to take everything out, and you have to spread it over the whole year. So that's what I said to this guy. And that's exactly what the Rebbe means. The Rebbe means we have to take Tishrei, and you have to keep living with Tishrei in all the months to come. Shabbos Bereishis gives you the power to do that. You follow? That's Indian of Cheshvan, according to the Mom, just from the word to keep repeating the whole time. Malchashvan Sposam. I think, when I read that, I was very impressed.
Why is it called Mar Heshvan?
Yeah?
Why is it Mar Heshvan?
What is Mar Cheshvan? It's the month that's coming now.
No, why is it called?
Why?
The Hebrew month that's coming now is Mar Cheshvan.
He wants to know why it's called that in Aramaic.
He just said that.
What do we call it? Mar
He just said
Cheshvan?
that. You're giving over like this.
What do we call it? Mar